When it comes to which WW2 army was the toughest, you could argue for 3 days and nights without a clear answer. But when it comes to which WW2 army was the weakest, it's definitely Italy. This nation put all its skill points into cooking. While other countries' logistics departments were racking their brains over calculations, calories, and nutrition, Italy was figuring out how to get olive oil, pasta, and Parmesan cheese to the front lines. They wanted their soldiers to eat well and drink well. While the enemy in the trenches was chewing on hard biscuits and cold canned food, Italian soldiers were probably trying to live it up, cooking a pot with canned tomatoes, making a steaming hot pasta. This wasn't just hedonism, it was the Italian army's deep-rooted philosophy of life. You can lose a battle, but you must eat well. Of course, saying the Italian army was good at eating doesn't mean their food was always great. It means even in extreme scarcity, with limited supplies, they tried every way to improve their meals. This was very different from other countries' armies at the time, especially unlike the British Army. As I mentioned in the last video, to win battles, the British turned their field rations into industrialized modules like fuel. Whether it was hard biscuits or corned beef cans, they pushed the limits of human taste buds. The Italian army was the exact opposite. They'd rather lose the entire war than mistreat their stomachs. Before WW2 broke out, the Italian army's rations were quite good. The standard was 560 grams of staple food per person daily, 250 grams of meat, 100 grams of potatoes, 100 grams of fresh vegetables, 20 grams of salt, 15 grams of lard, and 40 grams of cheese. Officers got extra tea and coffee. During holidays, they even had sandwiches. Also, in the Italian Royal Army's supply regulations, red wine was explicitly listed as part of a soldier's daily ration, equally important as bread, pasta, and canned meat. It was crucial for boosting energy and morale. Supply item. Whether officer or common soldier, everyone got 250 milliliters of red wine daily. What's more, Italian soldiers had high standards for the taste of red wine. To prevent soldiers from getting sick or upset over bad wine, the logistics department specially sourced wine from southern Italy and other wine regions, with moderate alcohol content and resistance to spoilage. So when Soviet soldiers were chugging vodka in the ruins of Stalingrad, when British soldiers were drinking tea that tasted like asphalt, Italian soldiers in the North African desert were sipping red wine from goblets, complaining as they drank that this batch of wine wasn't as good as the last. On the North African battlefield, an Italian soldier was supposed to get 700 grams of bread or hard biscuits daily, 200 grams of pasta, 200 grams of canned corned beef or sardines, 40 grams of cheese, 30 grams of olive oil, 300 grams of fresh or canned vegetables, and small amounts of coffee powder and sugar. Of course, this was just the theoretical standard. The actual amount received was far below this. This was because, after WW2 began, on the North African battlefield, the sea supply lines to mainland Italy were tightly blocked by the British Air Force and Navy based in Malta. Most of the time, these supplies were just wishful thinking. Especially lacking were drinking water and water for daily use. But no matter how tough the conditions, they couldn't stop the food-loving Italian soldiers. As long as they had canned tomatoes and pasta, they'd use the tomato can juice to make a meal. Olive oil and spices simmered into a simple sauce, mixed with chopped, canned corned beef, then poured over cooked pasta, and finally sprinkled with Parmesan cheese. This made a classic Italian pasta dish. However, although pasta stores well and is easy to carry and fills you up like crazy, a field kitchen is no match for a professional restaurant. The finished dish was often questionable in quality, either cooked into a mushy mess or unevenly mixed with sauce, making some bites bland and tasteless and others overly salty. So, seasoned Italian soldiers would deliberately avoid the front or back of the line. Too early and the flavor was off, too late and the texture was all wrong. They truly mastered the art of eating. A quick side note. Canned tomatoes held a godlike status in the Italian army's rations. These cans were resistant to spoilage, could be stored for a long time, and preserved the tomato's original flavor to the greatest extent. They became the ultimate lifesaver. Without field kitchens and with extreme shortages of supplies, no matter what awful food Italian soldiers managed to whip up, just one spoonful of tomato sauce could turn the worst dish into something decent. On June 20, 1940, Mussolini declared war on France, hoping to grab a share of the spoils as Paris fell. But not only did they fail to gain ground, they got battered and bloodied. An army of 32 divisions, 300,000 men, was crushed in the Alps by 6 French second-line divisions, leaving them in complete disarray. The casualty ratio was a staggering 5-1, and that's not all. To support this 300,000-man operation, Italy's logistics department nearly emptied all domestic warehouses, even diverting supplies meant for North Africa and the Balkans to this campaign. But this operation wasn't a total loss. It also cost them their maritime supplies. After this campaign, Britain could focus its entire navy to cut off Italy's sea routes. This dealt a devastating blow to Italy's supply lines to North Africa. The Italian army fighting in North Africa suffered greatly, going hungry 3 days out of 9. It was a miserable existence. As supplies dwindled, the soul of the Italian army, red wine rations, was the first to be cut or canceled. Next, the daily rations of pasta and bread were drastically reduced. In their place came hard biscuits, easier to store but barely edible. Later on, the supply of olive oil, cheese, and canned meat became highly unstable. They were replaced with low-quality canned fish and various substitutes. Logistics' goal shifted from serving pasta to simply keeping soldiers from starving. With fresh vegetables and fruits unable to arrive, scurvy and vitamin deficiencies began to spread among the Italian army. Widespread malnutrition and hunger became the final straw that broke the army's morale. In November 1942, as the Allies landed on North Africa's west coast through Operation Torch, the Axis forces' escape routes and supply lines in North Africa were completely cut off. Finally, in May 1943, over 250,000 Italian soldiers, out of ammunition and food, surrendered en masse to the Allies. With that, Italy lost its entire overseas empire and a massive army. Its homeland was left exposed to the Allied onslaught. Mussolini's doom soon followed. To put it bluntly, Mussolini's fascist Italy was just a showboating clown. Despite its weak strength, it always tried to act bigger than it was. It kept projecting an image of power as if such theatrics could restore the glory of the Roman Empire. For a country so fond of showing off, you didn't even need to fight it seriously. Just cut off its supplies and its true colors showed. And so, Italy became the first of the 3 Axis powers to collapse.